Welcome, everybody, to Seeking Numina, the Sacred Places podcast. I'm your host, Elise Wells, and today I am joined by one of my favorite practitioners and teachers, Ivo Dominguez Jr., who honestly, I don't have any bios written, like found for you. I'm just gonna wax eloquently on who you are to the world. Ivo has been a practicing witch for 50 years, maybe more.
It depends on where you draw the line, but I would say that it started in the 70s, so it's been a while.
Yeah. And I think for listeners, if you're like, I've never heard of him, I guarantee a lot of the work that you do and see around is because Evo shared it, taught it, or did it. Welcome to Seeking Numina. I'm your host, Elise Wells, and I invite you to connect with the sacred wild within and around you through Numina, or sacred sites around the world, and the wisdom they hold. Together, let's remember the old ways, build relationships with land spirits, and dare to reach out to the fairies. The sacred wild is inviting you to dance in the moonlight. Will you answer their call? So I'm really glad to have you on the show finally. And I'm super pumped that they're re-releasing Spirit Speak because it's an important book.
Yeah, it's very worrisome because the publishing industry, you never know what's going to stay in print, and the only way it's staying in print is by having a revised edition.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad they're doing it.
I was really pleased. I wasn't pleased that it was a rush job. Um,
Mm,
well, let's be realistic. The cost of printing is about to go up dramatically because of terrible
right.
unrest in our entire global economy. So if you're a publisher, you have to think fast about what can I get done in the time frame I have before prices go up.
Yeah.
So let's hope for the best on all that. But yeah, you'll find that a number of publishers are either scrambling or are making as many advanced contracts to fix the prices.
hmm Yeah. Actually, that's maybe a good question. When you wrote Spirit Speak versus now, how do you a lot of questions in there, I guess. How do you see it serving the audiences maybe differently? Like maybe there's more imperatives today than even back then?
I think so. I'll say the biggest question when I first wrote it, and its initial format was actually as an in-house, uh, printed out at the Kinko's and bound at Kinko's and handed out to members of our covens. So originally it was strictly an in-house thing, and then I grew into something that I wanted to share with the world. But my biggest problem at the time was there's a lot of material in it that, especially back then, would have been difficult for people to parse if it was their first foray into a lot of these materials. And one of the problems you have if you I consider myself primarily a teacher at the level of face to face and in person and write because I have to. And when you have a relationship with somebody who's going to be coming to your classes or going to be attending your rituals and so on, you have the opportunity to continue to answer questions or to find where they misunderstood and to offer some suggestions on how to reframe things. When you write a book, you just have to hope that they're going to read it and be able to make sense of it and apply it to their own practice in a way that is helpful to them and not leading them into a potential mishap of some sort psychologically or spiritually. So one of the problems with the initial publication is, should I do this? And my answer was yes, even though they may or may not have access to somebody to help them make sense of all of it. It is better to have things out there that people can read than to wait until there are enough people that are doing classes in the locations where every individual that is suddenly awakening to magic. Nowadays, it's more of a question of, am I covering the things that have blossomed into greater interests in the last 20 years?
Mm,
So that was part of the other thing was in that early book, and I had to fight the publisher the first go round. I went all through the book. I went back and forth changing all the references were I went back and forth between he and she, and I tried to make and use they as often as possible. And the publishers back then thought I was crazy, but it's like I'm trying to make a book that reads for whoever the reader may be.
Yeah.
So this time I was able to go through and make those kinds of changes. I also have added answers because over the years I've had people ask me questions about the book, or I discovered areas that unless you had a particular piece of knowledge or understood a particular term of art, it didn't make sense. So the book's about 12,000 words longer now.
Mm.
And one part of that is there's a whole new chapter. But there's a lot of places where I've slipped in a line or two or an extra paragraph that now I don't have to anticipate the questions that people were going to ask about the book. They've been asking them for years, and I can slip some additional answers into the material.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. And I think that's good too for people listening who maybe already have a copy at home to know that there's more,
There's
much
more
more.
in it.
12,000, that's a good bit.
It's
Yeah.
a good chunk. I wanted to do more. But they tell you, they put a cap on how many words they want you to do because they have an idea of how many pages they want to print and how small the print can go before it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
And my biggest happiness with this particular edition is it's finally going to be available as an audiobook and Audible.
Oh, that is really good. Thanks for sharing that too.
I was asking for years, is there ever going to be. And because it's a whole new thing, they were able to fold it into whatever contracts they have. So, yeah. Though I've had several friends say, "Is it going to be your voice?" And the answer is no. And I will tell you that pretty much most publishers, throw them would rather throw themselves on a sword than allow a author to read their own book. One, because it is a different skill set to
Yeah.
narrate a book, and it also has to run on time. And it's if you're not accustomed to doing perfect recording runs, it can go way over time. So no, it's not going to be my voice, and that's just as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe they'll pick, there's somebody I've noticed they use for like Jason Miller's books.
Yeah,
Yeah, like I don't know his name, but
I don't know either, but
he'd be
yeah,
a good fit.
it'd be good. Yeah. The issue is that whether or not they'll understand what they're reading.
It's funny you say that. I have listened to audiobooks of the occult persuasion, and like you can tell like they'll mispronounce something and like it doesn't flow, like they don't know that's actually a
Clearly,
noun or so as the Sacred Places
yes.
podcast that this
Uh,
is, I guess let's start with the book, Spirit Speak.
mhm.
How do you speak to spirits of place in your practice?
So I'm going to say that in spirits of place were the first spirits that I spoke to before I had my first encounter with a goddess, a god. We can draw the line on human spirits because I saw ghosts pretty much as far back as I can remember. But they were the first ones that spoke to me. And they spoke to me because I loved spending time in the woods when I was a kid, and I had access to places that I could walk and explore. For me, that was the first place, and it's a natural evolution of finding the face in the leaves, hearing the sound of the wind or the creek, and it rolling in my head and turning into something more, feeling the tingling on the skin of being fully immersed in a place, or feeling something that was a hovering presence, either feeling very, very heavy and thick the air or almost effervescent and light and pulling you up. So I find that for me, and I actually suspect that most people, if they allow themselves enough time in any given outdoor space, especially if you can return to the same one again and again, whatever is there will begin to reveal itself to you because frankly, this is who we were before the current, modern era. I mean, we evolved to be in nature. We were arboreal creatures before we were this.
Yeah.
So of course we know these things at a deep, deep, deep level. That's in our DNA, in our epigenetics, and frankly, even more importantly, in our energy, in our souls. So I think that we are eminently equipped to communicate and be in contact with spirits of place. I also think that it's one of the reasons why, even though it's often a downside, humans' tendency to view everything as a human being, the anthropomorphizing of things, or I prefer vivomorphizing because sometimes it's about making it like an animal or making it like a bird or giving it something that has a face.
Mm.
We because so anything that's alive, it doesn't have to look like a human, doesn't have to be a human, but for humans, it does better if we give it a face. But we have the capacity to bond with and impose that structure on those things. Now, that means that that's our route of communication. When we commune with nature spirits, I actually think that we have to be clear about nature spirits are not the same as spirits of place, but also that identity and boundaries between beings are not as cut and dried when we step outside of this frame in this form. So, for example, I often like to use the idea of let's say that for a very long time, there's been a village, and there's a source of water nearby because that's a good idea. And there's an odd rock formation or a large tree that at some point has been hit by lightning. And every time that the villagers go to get water or whatever, they notice this rock formation in this tree. Wherever we apply attention, energy follows. That's a maximum magic, and it's also one that's true with this. So over time, the things that we notice in a landscape become enlivened and pick up a patina, a layer of human energy. Now, what that does is if you are the thing that is the river, the thing that is the rocks, the thing that is the trees, which is a composite being of sorts, then you'll have noticed, hey, the humans have lit a beacon there. There's a ton of glowy energy that we can see on our side. So that the naturally occurring rocks, grottos, trees that are unusual enough to catch our attention often become the place that we begin to commune with nature spirits, not just because it catches our imagination, which is not a bad thing, but we have deposited enough energy, either as an individual or collectively over time, that it acts as a bridge between us and them. Their consciousness is not like ours. They don't use language like we do, but humans being humans, we provide a sample of our consciousness, a sample of our language, and that energy is their Rosetta Stone to poke at the things that light up in our souls or our minds. So I think it's a very natural process. And indeed, if you've ever had an animal companion or have friends that have animals, like I have a friend that came to visit recently because she wanted to see our new puppy. And they're a dog person and a cat person, animal person in general. So our animals immediately treated her differently because she holds her consciousness in a particular way when she's around them. And there's a natural evolution of talking for your animals. And at first it's just playful and stupid, but eventually it's your way of actually verbalizing what you're sensing at some level. Honestly, talking for your animals is not that different than using a pendulum for something. It's allowing a part of you to be a conduit for something else. And the same thing happens with nature spirits and spirits of place. Spirits of place also are not as segmented as we are. So, for example, there's a spirit of place that is there's a tree that's on our property that if we're going to have a big storm, that's the one I go to and ask for help and warn it because it's kind of like the focal point for the other spirits of that of nature and of stone and of water, the elementals and so on. Place spirits are made out of nature spirits, made out of elementals, and sometimes a bit more. Sometimes there's some human energy, and sometimes I'm going to call it fey energy for lack of a better, quick idea. But they can be made of many things, and their identity as a spirit of place is variable and temporary. It only comes into focus and into being when something like us that needs words and needs linear tick, tick, tick time kind of consciousness poses a question or needs something, or we need to give it something as well. And then if you zoom out, there's the spirit that's the whole watershed that space is in. And it's more like spirits of place are like organs in a larger body.
Mm. Yeah,
So
that's beautifully said.
anyway, I talk too fast.
No, that was fantastic. And I like that your definitions are different than mine, which is good. I love that. Like, because I sometimes will have people like come across my definition and they're like, and they'll use a different term and then they'll say, "Oh, sorry, I meant," and then use mine. I'm like, "No, no, I like your term. I want to hear the other terms." And I'm
Right.
really glad this is on the podcast for people to come back to. So, how I would define a stone, like you said about the village, they've got
Mhm.
this like lightning struck tree, this little stone grotto perhaps that's next
Right.
to it. those I would call them guardians of the land because they act as portals for us to reach
Yeah.
the real land spirit that I
Hmm.
always, if you're watching this on YouTube, you're watching me do this, but whenever I talk about land spirits, I almost always move my hand down because
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah.
They're the foundation level of the spirit of place. Like they are spirit of place is like the ecosystem. I love that organs in a body.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
too they're like, even to say your yard, if you live in a traditional, I guess it's not as traditional anymore, but thinking of a nice little house that has a little yard in the back,
Yep.
that yard even is going to just be an amalgamation, a layering, a vortex of spirits. The spirit of places, the land
Certain,
spirit is
certain places.
way
Yeah.
down at the bottom.
No, I agree. And the going down thing is important. We're out in the country, so we have a well as our source of water.
Amazing.
So sometimes when I need to do work, I'll actually go and we've piled up a little cairn on top of the well, uh, and I'll go there and go down using the well as the connecting point for a particular kind of spirits. There's also there's also the thing that used to be popular, then it falls out of popularity, and then somebody rediscovers it, and it's a cycle. But suddenly, when I first got involved in this particular kind of stuff, would have been I guess the 80s would be the time I was really into this. But people were always working with and talking with the idea of ley lines or energy
Ley
conduit.
lines, yeah.
And then that kind of vanished for a while. And now suddenly I've had several people ask about it in the last couple of months, and I'm wondering what's going on there. But my current view of it is that, and sure, you can view it like the meridians in Chinese medicine, but they're at the level of the earth and yada yada. But I also like the old story idea of them being the underground rivers of energy. But then if we imagine that it's all connected and there's a resonance between everything physical and everything metaphysical, then just it's beginning to rain outside. So I'm hearing the rain, but I'm also thinking about the rain cycle where water rises up, forms the clouds, comes down, some of it seeps down into subterranean places, some of it goes out to the ocean. Now imagine that the life force that is arising from all incarnate living things on the planet also rise up, but also descend and collect in these ley lines, these rivers of life force that sometimes parallel and sometimes are different to the underground waters. So I think that there's a whole nother ecological cycle of energy and life force that is represented and accessible through the nature spirits. Yeah, like by the way, the tree I go to ask for help if there's bad weather coming, I think of as the chieftain tree. So that's close. That's
Mm.
similar idea.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I had a so my book that's coming out later this year, Sacred Wild, is an
Hmm.
invitation to connect to spirits of land. That's the a little
Yep.
byline. And I originally had like a few more titles like that, like you might have an elder guardian who is a tree that's this. And Llewellyn was like, too
Mm.
many terms, save them for book two. So
I get it.
yeah, because it does kind of become, it's useful up to a point, and then it's like,
Right.
well,
Right.
but I do think of like, yeah, like that big, or like I call them like elders of the land as well, like that
Hmm.
very important fixture
Hmm.
for that land, which might not be on your own land. Most of us don't
No.
have a lot of land. This is the first time in my waking human life in this body that I've had my own land, which is just a
Mhm.
little backyard, but
But still.
yeah, it's crazy. It's cool. Like I can help the bees. I can plant things for everybody. We're composting, like stuff that you really need a little outdoor space to do, which feels really good. There's the elders that might not be on your own land. Like for me here in the United States, when I'm here, it's the Susquehanna River.
Hmm.
So she's that shaper of land. And
Hmm.
I wanted to go back to what you said about the watersheds.
Yeah.
They, Llewellyn did me a beautiful little map of this for my book, which I actually saved in my phone so I can show you it.
Awesome.
But Mama Susquehanna, she is a massive watershed and she's the longest continuously flowing river in the world.
Hmm.
And she goes through 4 states. And if you're watching this on YouTube, we'll put the real picture up on the thing. But look at that
Oh, wow.
watershed.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's amazing. And you feel her energy everywhere
But
in
that's the
that
natural
area.
boundary of the shape of that being.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's amazing.
And so there's a something I've been experimenting with that's a different kind of spirit of place because it's a place that's in movement.
Mm.
So how about this? It's subtle, but I have been finding utility in it. So sure, the moon pulls the waters and the tides of the earth, yada yada. And on the opposite side, there's also a lump because of the centrifugal force, and we got all that. I've been going down because there's a funny thing. So here's the moon, here's the earth, and have you ever played on a seesaw as a child?
Oh yeah.
And if your friend is bigger or smaller than you, you have to like adjust where you are on the seesaw so that it actually balances.
Right. Yeah.
The moon's so much smaller than the Earth that the balance point, the fulcrum point, is actually thousands of miles underneath the surface of the Earth.
Hmm.
So here's the thing: it's in the magma, it's in the molten stuff. So as the moon is going round, it's also every day pulling a tide of stone.
Wow.
And I've been trying to connect with and to feel that because it's a physical thing, but also it's touching really deep places. And also that movement, that tug as it goes round the earth is also stirring electromagnetism. And I'm going to say that people go, well, that's just sciencey stuff. No, it's
Mm-mm.
also part of just as our body anchors and enlivens the spirit attached to us, that motion, that energy release there is also doing something for the earth.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to feel the other tide, not just the tide of the water, but also the deep tide that is also going around with the waters,
The fire and the earth.
the fire in the earth.
That's really beautiful. I've been thinking about, and it goes back to sacred sound as well.
Ah,
I've been really thinking a lot about how sound is so important and
yep.
I think land spirits work was that gateway for me because it does require such a stillness
Hmm.
that you can hear things you can't usually hear. And that stillness, like I think about the witch's pyramid and to
Hmm.
be silent.
Hmm.
I think when I was walking my pentagram, that's what we call it in our tradition, like when you go through initiation,
Yep.
like I sat with that one the longest because I was also like precocious and I just am that way. But I was like, to be silent, silent, what does that mean? What
Sure.
value is silent? And it just really, I think I still think about it a lot. Like to be silent is also it's so much. It's to listen. It's people minimize it. They're like, oh, it's don't share rituals we do in the coven. Keep your oaths. Okay. That's one type of silence. But
That's the surface one.
yeah, the real one is what you hear when you can really be silent
Hmm.
and the
Hmm.
reverence that we can have for our elders. And what greater elders do we have than the land? And thinking
Yeah.
of that sacred sound and the sounds that
Hmm.
the earth makes. Someone literally less than an hour ago, I was on a podcast and she asked me, she said, "What's a sacred place you want to visit that you never have?"
Hmm.
And I said, "Glaciers." Because glaciers also are
Yes.
always moving and they make music.
Yes.
Look it up on SoundCloud, people.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
there. You
It's
can
real.
listen to glacial music.
No, I very much love sound. And as somebody who can tell likes to talk, uh, I have my own, thoughts around when the first time I encountered the witch's pyramid. But the other one that came to me and was also that I was encouraged, in addition to the silence, is the only way you actually receive guidance
Yeah.
and can communicate with some things. But there's another bit. We associate silence with the power of the element of earth. Well, we only can access our instincts when we get this out of the way. So
Mm.
the deeper instincts can only arise when they're not being overridden or held back by the constant stream of verbiage that we have. And the deep language of what I believe is the language if and I'm going to use languages as an extended thing because it's not really language as we know it. Nature spirits, spirits of place, elementals, and so on have what I think of as form language rather than having an abstract representation as words or images, because our images are pretty abstracted too, and we hold them in our head, is in the same sense that a molecule knows which other molecule it can connect with and how, simply because that's the only way these are the possible arrangements can come. It is literally the consciousness of those things is completely the actual thing itself. The actual form itself is the language.
Yeah.
And vibration is is a form.
Yeah. It's interesting that you said people might dismiss some of this as sciency stuff. because I just have always thought science is just the magic we haven't explained yet. Like,
Yeah.
or the magic we have explained is this existing science. And anything science is still figuring out, we already know in magic. And we stress about finding the words to put to it
Mm-hmm.
when we don't really need them.
I mean, if you want a perfect example or set of illustrations, that's a better word, set of illustrations of the principle of as above, so below.
Mm.
Go take a geology class, especially sedimentary and stratigraphic stuff, because basically you see the repetition of shapes and forms being caused by similar forces at just different orders of scale. I mean, there is now. Here's the part where I understand why people get a little bit cranky because unless you have way more math than I have, some of the things are something that I have to read a codification, a condensation of something that I can't do the math to understand it. But there it is our job as magical folks to take anything from science and find the poetry in it. And honestly, there are a lot of it's a two-way street the what we create as ideas and as poetry or as fanciful thoughts eventually work their way back into the imaginations of the scientists that are still on the cutting edge. So
Yeah.
I think it's a two-way street. It's wrong for either party, the scientist or the occultist, to decide that they fully understand each other's work.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know. And I'm thinking of, Star Trek inventing things that scientists are like, actually, could we do that?
We
They
absolutely
did.
can.
Yeah. I wanted to ask about
Huh?
how you formed a sacred space on your land. Yeah.
Well,
I guess, how did that come about? And what were some things you did with the land to kind of guide that process and bless it as it went along?
the first thing is that we looked for 2 years, and there were numerous places that we saw that from a financial or a needs to be at least this big, et cetera, met the criteria. But every place we visited, we walked around more than once and waited for the land to indicate in some way that we were welcome to be there and to do the work that we intended to do. So part of it was waiting for a sign. And there was finally a place that the place that we ended up buying where I'm sitting right now, is the second time, the first time it's yeah, that's pretty good, but let's look at some other ones. And the second time we went, we were walking around and we didn't walk that much further than we had into onto the property as the previous time, but it felt different. And almost immediately, oh, there's a big patch of pink lady slipper. Wow, what we hadn't noticed those before, and those are endangered. And and within like about a 10-minute walk, the land was suddenly here. Look at the cool things that are here that we didn't show you the last time because we didn't know.
Yeah.
So that we noticed some plants that had always been there, but they weren't noticeable the last time. And also, so first of all, when you buy land that you intend, if you have, and I'll say privilege and luxury, to take the time and have the money to hold off so that you can find a place that wants you. It's kind of like you're the new roommate, and you want to make sure that you're going to fit in with the existing roomies that are in that place. So that was part of it. But then once we did, and many scratches and mosquito bites and scrapes later, we eventually planted crystals and things at the entire perimeter of the property in multiple places. And honestly, this one we did with permission, but there were a bunch of trees that were at the perimeter of the property that we asked, and they said yes, because that's the other thing. If something says no or you don't get a clear answer about this, if it isn't vigorous consent on the part of the
Mm.
nature spirit or the plant, then it's not consent.
Yeah.
So at the end, there's like six of them that are still there. One fell over eventually, but we found trees that we could cut a small slit into, and we put a little crystal inside, and then covered it with some beeswax to let it heal. So there are trees that have healed over and grown over the years. We've been on the property since 1990.
Mm.
That have some crystals that were charged and are part of the boundary perimeter, if you will. There's a tree that we noticed when we built the property, and that became the tree for offerings. So that, for example, we have a garden, and the first everything, the first tomato, the first pepper, the first squash, the first strawberry, whatever, every year, the first whatever gets offered at that tree before we can pick anything to eat for ourselves. So that we also listen. There are places on the property that where we are not welcome either. It's a big chunk of land. It's what we call it Sealy Court, but it's 102 acres and it's across from a state forest on two sides, so it really feels like you're in a bigger place. But there are places that we are not welcome. And people say, "Oh, if you convince you can convince them with enough offerings and singing to them." And it's like, no, we were told very clearly that there are places in our woods that are off limits to humans, and I recommend that you abide by that. And a couple of times people have not, and they've gotten, let's just say, unwelcomed by the land.
This is where people get the idea that Fae are dangerous. All the stories we hear are the what not to do's.
You know,
They found out.
and it's not even then that it's an ongoing process. I mean, we've planted things that are time on the property that at where we've asked, is this a good place for this to go? If you haven't read any of the Findhorn or Findhorn, whichever way you prefer to say books, they're not necessarily cookbooks for how to be any particular kind of pagan, but they do introduce a couple of ideas about how to live with an ear open to whatever is going to be there. And sometimes it seems like nonsense, like I don't know why, but I'm being told we have to move this rock from here to there, and for some reason moving it, 80 feet is going to make a difference. So, and we got there's some things that are cumbersome that we have not cut down because the answer is repeatedly, nope, not that one, not this time. The other bit is that we do multiple times a year that we have events on the property that are about saying thank you and also energizing. And we have some beehives and we have, on the bee shed, which has all the equipment, I painted a bee and I painted a bee goddess and it's there's one of our governors actually her primary work is working with the small. She hardly does any work with the big ones, the great ones, the goddesses and gods and whatnot, but she prefers to work with the forgotten smaller ones. Now the smaller ones are still ancient and giant, by any stretch of the imagination compared to humans, but you get the idea,
Yeah, it makes me think of how in Lord of the Rings, Treebeard, the oldest being on the planet,
right?
calls Tom Bombadil the old one.
Yeah, and
That
yeah.
says it all. Yeah. And he calls Gandalf young Gandalf.
Young Gandalf.
Yeah.
But now the thing is that if you want to make land sacred, the other thing is when something bad has happened, and by bad I don't necessarily mean that somebody did something that was desecrating the land or whatever, but you know what? We have a lot of open rituals on our property periodically. And once you allow, humanity in, occasionally you're going to have people that are going to have a meltdown or a problem. So there have been times that we've had to, one of the times it was a husband and wife that decided to have a meltdown after one of our public rituals.
When we raise energy, sometimes we forget.
Sometimes we forget, but they had a so they stomped off into the woods and had a big fight in the woods because
Oof,
because they didn't want
those
people
poor
to be
woods.
didn't want people overhearing. So later we had to go, to where they had been in the woods and basically, do some soothing energy because they were not accustomed to people that were moving energy. Because that's the other thing. Magical folks have to be extra careful because when we work so hard to connect our senses to and our psychic senses to our physical senses. We work so hard to learn how to move and manipulate energy for healing, for ritual, for changing consciousness, etc. And then we forget that energy follows attention. Emotion is the currency of magic.
Mhm.
Emotion runs faster than thought. And when magical folks lose their cool, there's like, it's a little firestorm. It's energy flailing about madly. And if it was somebody who had never studied anything, it would be bad. But when you have built up these instincts and these linkages, they automatically kick in. So that we do a lot of accidental magic or energy work when we lose it, and we're not the only ones present.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think we focus too much on the conscious energy work and forget that, yeah, we are building muscles. And it's like somebody who goes to the gym a lot. If they, swing around and hit something, that hit is going to be
It's gonna
harder.
hit hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, or if somebody's been training in martial arts and somebody does something stupid like come up from behind them and poke them in the ribs, it's
Yeah.
not going to be pretty, and it's not even about was it intentional? No, their instinct was bap.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the practice you've been practicing is
It's
just
gonna
working.
it's just working, and so I would suggest that if there's an emotional blowout in a place that's land and it's not even in a park, or frankly, there's a lot of pagan gatherings that happen at campgrounds. And one of the things that I find valuable, and I used to do when I used to do more public rituals at those sorts of spaces, is I would go and find the spot that was assigned by the organizers for where I would do the ritual, and then I would introduce myself, the day before or hours as much time as I could ahead of time to whatever was there and ask for permission and let them know what I was going to be doing and what we were going to be about. And do I need to fix anything before then? Do you need anything done? Do I need to tidy up any human energy that's been, a thorn in your side since the last thing that happened here? So, I mean, it's a good idea to, if you're going to be doing a ritual in nature anywhere, whether it's your space or somebody else's space, and especially campgrounds because you don't know what happened there last.
Yeah.
And some campgrounds that have been used repeatedly, you can almost feel a sigh of a deep sigh and some comfort when they realize, oh, it's the pagans arriving.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I live near Camp Bramblewood.
Oh yeah,
And
that's a long history.
oh yeah, and like I haven't been yet, which is crazy. But I'm gonna actually be presenting at Free Spirit Gathering next month as of recording
Awesome.
this. And so I'll get to go then, but I'm close enough to it that I'm gonna go about soon. I'm trying to actually go in the next couple weeks. They have a few breaks in events, so I'm gonna try and go even sooner, and then I'll go the night before and then the hour before. Because actually the workshop I'm doing is on building a land spirits altar, how to have an altar to connect to the land. Um, because we like altars. Humans need them. Like we like that
It
gathering
helps.
reminder.
It
Yeah, yeah, it
really,
helps.
really helps. It really helps. And people say, "Oh, we don't need anything." I heat my house primarily with a wood stove, and I am so grateful that wheelbarrows exist instead of having to carry it an armload at a time. And the same is true of altars or all the other stuff that we have for temples or shrines or magical tools. They make life easier. It's bad to get dependent on anything, but they sure help.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think if you don't have a big beautiful tree in your yard or you don't have
Yeah,
we have to create those sacred spaces for
absolutely.
ourselves.
Absolutely.
All right. I guess we're coming to the end of our interview here.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have any final words of wisdom for speaking with the land that you would like to leave listeners with?
The entire world is in crisis ecologically, not just politically. So I think you will find that there are a bunch of beings of place that would really love to partner in doing some useful, positive work with you. And there are a lot of them that are going to be extra reticent because humans.
Mm,
So I think it's important. And remember that climate change won't kill all life on the planet. The planet will recover. We will lose treasures along the way, but we're the ones that are at risk, the most risk. So I would say it's time, if you haven't already, because as things get more intense with climate change, hopefully you will have friends that are living around you that might be there when you're able to listen to them and they give you a warning about something that you need to be aware of or what that you can do to help them.
thank you for that reminder for all of us. Yeah, it is important that we recognize, as powerless as we often feel, the land has the power. So let's get that
Absolutely.
allyship going. And when does Spirit Speak release? Is it still, I need to think about when this comes out.
September 2nd is the official release date, though I have been told that it is likely that physical copies might be available, at the very end of August, but I'm not going to hold my breath. Just September 2nd is the official.
That sounds good. So
Yeah,
if this is out before then, pre-order it, but I think it's going to be out in September. So that might
yeah,
actually align
definitely.
really well that people can just go get it right away.
Yeah.
Where can people buy it slash follow up with any events you're hosting?
Please, if at all possible, support your local stores, especially the independent ones. If you don't have a local or independent shop, then use your preferred online service. But please always go small and local first because those are infrastructure for our community.
Yeah.
And the last place you should buy it is for me, not because I make more money if I sell it to you directly. However, books are kept in print based on how well they are doing through the distribution. So that when I sell a book, it doesn't count towards the book is doing well, let's keep it in print.
Oh, that's a good point.
You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, no, it's more value in the long run. The amount of difference in money from me selling directly over time or with it's not about the money. Keeping it in print is the thing for me, and that means being bought through commercial sources like bookstores or online sources.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Thank you for being on Seeking Numina. And I'm excited for people to finally read Spirit Speak. Hopefully they'll release more,
There,
re-release.
I have a bunch of other things in the works. Hopefully they'll all find publishers to take them.
Thank you for seeking Numina with me today. Join me at patreon.com/Elise Wells to support this show and get access to a library of rituals, exclusive videos, meditations, and more. To learn more about my upcoming retreats, book a tarot reading, or learn with me in workshops, classes, or mentorship, visit seekingnumina.com.